Camille, how's it going today?
Oops. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited about today because we got a lot to talk about, and we got one of the baddest saxophonists, I think, on the scene, period, who happens to be my big sister. And I'm really excited to get to talk to her and have her share her wisdom with the ladies. So everybody, this is our seventh Haven Hang, and our special guest today is a phenomenal educator, composer, saxophonist, mentor. She's my big sister. Her name is Tia Fuller. Give it up for Tia Fuller.
All right.
Hey, Tia.
Oh, you have to unmute her.
Uh-oh, my bad. Here we go again.
That's okay. I made you the host.
Okay. Crap. I'm just going to make you the host because this is...
That's okay, yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right. It's all in you now.
All right.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to unmute. There we go.
There we go.
Cool.
Hi, Billa. Hi, Uni and Ella. Hey, Ella.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
So, if many of y'all don't know, Tia Fuller, she was one of the main reasons why I actually ended up picking up the saxophone and pursuing a career as a musician. Before I met Tia, I didn't know any women horn players. I happened to have picked up a CD, I think I was like 12 years old, which was by Virginia Mayhew, but I didn't literally meet a woman who played the saxophone, let alone a chocolate woman that played the saxophone, until I was 22. And when I first heard her, she blew me out of the water because she played with such command and with such artistry that it made me just reconsider. And I literally graduated and got rid of my degree and made the choice to come to New York. So Tia, I love you. You're my inspiration and my big sister.
Oh, Camille, thank you for that introduction. That's so sweet. I just remember the first time I met you and Michael. What was his last name?
Carbone.
Yeah, Carbone, the teacher at Binghamton University. And I remember when I got that master class, I was like, where in the world is Binghamton? Where does that even exist? But I remember him specifically telling me about you. He was like, I'm so glad you're here. I want you to meet one of my students. And not only does she play the mess out of the tenor, but she sings her behind off. And she's a geology major, right?
Yep.
I was like, what? That's quite a combination. And so I remember sitting up in the stands, hearing you during the concert. And I was just like, she's killing. So I'm just so thankful for that opportunity because that brought us together and we've been sisters ever since.
That's right.
I'm so proud of everything that you're doing. I'm just so proud of you. And yes, just keep going.
Thank you. So we have a lot of young ladies that tune into the Haven Hang, and this is an opportunity for them to hear directly from the artists. What was it like coming up as a young woman pursuing music as your passion? Could you share some words on how did you get started and what was the fire that got you excited about this music to make a career out of it?
Yeah. So I'm a jazz baby. I came for lack of a better words, but so I grew up. My mom and dad are both musicians. I grew up in rural Colorado, and my dad plays bass, and my mom sings. And just grew up hearing them rehearsing in the basement of our house. They were both educators in the Denver Public School District. And then they would gig on the weekends. And so my sister and I, my brother wasn't born at the time, but my sister and I would always accompany them to their gigs. Or my dad was gigging a lot more than my mom just because he was picking up extra work outside of teaching. But yeah, it was just a normal thing on the weekends. Uh-oh, is that my phone dinging like that? I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I don't know how to mute this, but and so it was all throughout my life. There was always a balance between and a strength between education and music, and not even just music, but the arts, because my mom was a English and a drama teacher. So she would always take us to go like the performing arts, and we'd go and see plays and musicals. And then she would always stress just being active and exposing her children to so many things that they could choose. And so something that I'm thankful of is that that I wasn't forced to play. I was highly encouraged to practice, but I wasn't forced to ever play. And my mom knew that it would be a process, because I actually started playing music when I was 3. Of course, you all know Shami Royston, my sister. And so she's older than I, but she was the one who first started playing piano. She was 7, I was 3, and man, I would be flunking that, what is it, the John Hammond's elementary method piano. Yeah. I flunked that from like age 4 to probably age 8. and every time Shami and I would be in our piano lessons, our teacher, bless her heart, her name is Miss Purse, and I am so sorry, y'all. Okay, but she would always look at me like I would be practicing, and then Miss Purse would look back, and then she would say, "Tia, have you practiced?" And I would be like, and then Shami, I look back at Shami, and Shami would just be shaking her head like, "I told you."
Yeah, they're like,
But it all started from there, and I think it just being exposed to playing the piano at 3, and then we started playing recorder. You know how all of us had to start playing recorder in elementary school, and then picked up the flute when I was 9. And then later I saw that my parents and my sister intermittently was practicing with my parents' group called Fuller Sound. Double entendre of Fuller Sound. But it was around 10 or 11. It was actually 10 when I was like, "Oh, that would be nice to play saxophone." And so I was perpetrating, y'all. Like the whole first part of my probably year of wanting to play saxophone, I was wearing all of this saxophone paraphernalia, the earrings, the necklace, but I really wasn't playing. But there's power. One thing I realized about that is there's a large amount of power in vision, and how I was almost speaking or acting these things into existence, to where then I started saxophone lessons, and then I went to my middle school, and my middle school director was like, "Oh," I told him that I wanted to play something else other than flute that was a little louder, because I just felt like, half your air is escaping the flute.
Yeah.
And I said, "I want to play something to play in the jazz band." And he said, "Well, why not the saxophone?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So this whole time I had pursued that and put that energy out there to really attract the saxophone to where he confirmed it. And from there it was history. But it was a long process for me, because it wasn't like I was practicing 6 to 8 hours a day when I was even like Ella's age. And I know Ella from the Montclair, from Jerry Allen Jazz Camp, right?
Yeah.
But one thing my mom did say is that, once up until you're 13, play the piano, and then that'll serve as your foundation for whatever else you're going to do. So in essence, she was kind of holding me to the piano until I found another voice. And once I picked up the saxophone, I remember it was my grandfather's horn that he had in his basement. He brought it, and I was sitting on the 3rd level of my parents' house, and I fingered a low B flat. Somehow I knew how to figure out low B flat. Right? And I played it, and it was like, boom! And then the whole sound reverberated throughout the house.
Wow.
And that was it, because I felt like I was powerful. I was like tapping into a certain element of power that I didn't really experience with the piano and the flute.
Wow. It's funny that you say that, because my first horn was an old horn that was sitting in the closet for 30 years. And the first time I blew it, I was so scared for playing that B flat.
Oh, really?
I played that B flat and I was like, oh.
Like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, you spoke on something that's interesting, like the importance of the fact that when you play that, you knew this was something that you wanted. And I know for a lot of young ladies, when they're starting on their instruments at 13, 14, 15,
Mm-hmm.
you're playing those low end instruments or those instruments that have a fuller sound to it, you're kind of questioning your confidence with being able to play something that has that potential to sound full and big. How did you know for yourself that you were comfortable with that?
That's a great question. I think the comfort rested in the power that I felt I was able to exude from within.
Mm.
And I really never thought about that. I just knew that it felt good to feel vibration and to be able to manipulate, now that I think back, but to be able to access a certain level of volume that did something intuitively within me that I was like, whoo, like it just filled me up. And I wanted to keep doing it again and again and again. And I'm so sorry for my dings. If anybody could help me mute this on my, I have to look.
Oh, yeah, Tia, I can help you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that an iPhone?
Yeah, it's my iPhone and it's coming through my computer.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say you could just mute it on your phone here.
Yeah, I muted it on my phone, but
Oh, but it's on here. Okay, so if
There
you,
might be a way.
so are you on an Apple computer?
yeah.
Okay, so if you go to the Apple in the corner and click on System Preferences, and then if you click on Notifications all the way on the right, and then you click on Do Not Disturb, and just click on like whichever time period you want, and then it should stop giving you the notifications.
Thank you. Thank you, Uni. Of course, my computer is responding. Okay, so system preferences. It was taking a second to recalibrate. And then what? Notifications?
Notifications. Okay. Do not disturb.
Okay.
And then you can choose however amount of time. It should say from and then.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And it should turn off. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to take some time out. This is just very distracting. I have a couple of group texts happening.
That's okay.
Always do it.
It's like, rah! Okay. Yeah. We're done. Okay. All right. Hopefully it'll stop.
I think you should be good.
Okay. Thank you, Uni. All right.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes. Thank you.
So how did you know that you were comfortable with yourself playing that instrument?
Oh, well, given the fact that I was perpetrating prior to picking up the instrument, there was something inside of me to where I felt more complete with the vision that I had. That is not what I was thinking of when I was 11, but it was something that met. There was like the vision, the opportunity, and then like the purpose. Once I blew into the horn and I accessed that power that I was talking about, and just I was able to access something within myself that it was scary because I didn't really know what it was. Like it was scary, but it was also exciting because it was a new venture that I was taking on. But there was something in that process that connected for me. And then I remember the song Brass Monkey. I might be dating myself, but You all remember Beastie Boys?
Yeah.
Okay, they're octaves basically, three octaves of a low B flat. And so it was just all of these things aligning because that was one of the popular songs out then. And I went straight to that song and was playing it all day, every day. And then I was in band class playing it all day, every day. But there was something in that where I was in alignment with myself and the vision because it was all coming together.
Yeah.
And as I was saying before the ding started taking over on my phone, it wasn't like, okay, I know I'm going to be a saxophonist for the rest of my life.
Right.
It didn't hit me like that. It was just something that I enjoyed. And I started to incorporate throughout everything else I was doing. I was in like acting in a dance pool. I was in gymnastics. Then when I got to high school, I started marching the drums, like percussion, the quads. Mm-hmm. And that really took over, but I was still in jazz band, and it really wasn't, I mean, I was practicing and I went to some jazz camps, but I really didn't make the active decision of really pursuing jazz and becoming a professional musician until I got to Spelman my freshman year, or prior to Spelman, because I had the opportunity to go to drum corps. It was almost between going to college or doing drum corps, and I was like, I really don't see the longevity of drum corps for me. But I really want to explore the Spelman because it's a HBCU, and you know the history behind the college being an historically Black university, all female college, and tapping into what I felt that I had tapped into when I was 11, but really being serious and intentional about it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you knew at a young age of what that was, even though you didn't know exactly what it was, but it felt in alignment with you. I know for a lot of young ladies, when we're trying to play an instrument at 12, 13, 14, 15, we're trying to figure out who we are. We're trying to get confidence. We're trying to understand what it is that we do, but then we're also trying to understand those social dynamics too. And especially when you have an instrument, it sometimes can get a little interesting. Could you share any experiences with that?
Yeah, well, before I tap on that, or before I speak to that, one thing about it is that I was licensed, I think, having parents as musicians and seeing it in my household, and then seeing my sister starting her groups, you know, when I was in middle school and she was in high school, entering college, I was actually licensed to, it's like, it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until later that I started feeling the sexism and the remarks and guys kind of looking over like, you're not supposed to be playing, you're the only girl, that whole thing. That society, those societal pressures or the cultural pressures that are housed within the music.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that to say, even if you don't have parents who play music, surround yourself with those who inspire you, whether they be peers or whether they be people who are more advanced than you and who are going to lift you up. Because I think it's essential at this age, very tender age of like being in those teenager years. And I have a niece that is my girl. And my sister was like, this is your child.
That is your child.
No, it's still my child. But I have a niece and she's 14. And I'm seeing how the work that you do that we do as young women, and the people that we surround ourselves with are ultimately the culmination of who we are.
Right.
If you look at the individuals, the two closest individuals, like your two best friends, they are speaking to your character and to who you are. So, and with her, I see her friends, and she has a vast amount of friends, but they are all strong. She's a part of a dance company, and then she also has other friends. But I'm seeing that they are all strong women, and many women of color. And I'm seeing that because I got that in my household, but I didn't really feel the strength of that until I got to Spelman. And how that has stuck with me throughout my life, of feeling like an empowered woman and knowing that when you don't feel strong, you can have your sisters to lean on to.
Right.
So that's one part of it. The other one is just, they don't have to be sisters as long as they're people who have your back at
Right.
this point. Because it doesn't make sense early on, because we're all going to deal with adversity. But to me, it doesn't make sense early on for you to be a part of something and not cultivate a healthy relationship with something that should be bringing you joy.
Right.
Joy, such as music or playing an instrument. That's too much like work. It should be fun.
It should be.
That's the impetus of where this really of this sustaining this music is, for it to be fun. Of course, work goes into it, but so yeah, I just wanted to talk on that, to really be careful of your surroundings and make sure that you're conscious about who you surround yourself with, and then if there are people who are speaking negativity to you or to what you're doing, then be cautious of that. Do not allow that to become a part of your subconscious, because that's when we get to 30, 40 years old and we're having to deconstruct that. If you guys could be really, or ladies, I'm sorry, I'm trying to change my terminology, but if you all could just be really intentional about addressing certain things that may make you uncomfortable that somebody says, you know, and you can use it as an opportunity to educate somebody too, because a lot of folks, unfortunately, we're living in this patriarchal, westernized world. So we have a lot of those do you guys know what or do you ladies know what I mean by patriarchal? Like highly male infused world, and being out here in America. So a lot of what we experience has those undertones of patriarchal undertones. That we have to counter within ourselves, let alone countering with other people, and then holding them accountable to us. I just had a conversation with one of my friends that I grew up with yesterday, and I don't mean to take this over, Camille, but
Oh, it's fine. This is what I wanted. Speak.
But just yesterday, he's one of my best friends from high school. I've known him for like 25 years. He's a police officer and he's a Caucasian male. I grew up in Aurora, Colorado. I was one of the only black women in band, black. And we've never spoken about race ever, because we have always we were in drumline together. We did all this stuff together. We were talking about George Floyd. This was a couple months ago, and he had replied through text in a way that I felt was very insensitive and didn't acknowledge anything that our community was going through. And so I didn't respond to him for about 2 months. I was upset, and I didn't know how to respond because we've never spoken about this. But I knew I had to address it and hold him accountable.
Right.
Based off of our history and based off of the subtleties in this culture of these patriarchal subtleties and this white supremacist mindset. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But basically, I responded to him yesterday, and a long response. I was like, you're insensitive, and I'm just letting you know that boom, boom, you're functioning out of a white supremacist mindset, and you need to check out this book, White Fragility, all of this stuff. And so he responds, and basically he said, I appreciate you. I have a thick skin, and I appreciate you holding me accountable. I didn't realize that, just holding people accountable. So that's all to say that do not be afraid. If somebody says something to you, do not be afraid to call them out. And it could be a nice way. Just say, that really didn't make me uncomfortable. Or that really made me uncomfortable, what you just said. What do you mean by that?
Right. I'm glad you touched on that, because I get questions pretty often from ladies about those kind of issues where if it's a thing of sexism, they're like, hey, I'm in the band and I'm the only woman, or I'm in the band with maybe 2 or 3 ladies and this such and such happened with some of my peers or with the teacher. How do I confront that? Because a lot of times they feel, on one hand, afraid to speak up, but then on the other hand, they're scared of what might happen, the repercussions of speaking out and speaking up for themselves in a situation like that. Yeah.
To that point, I think, I don't think, but I know I'm a part of this organization, called We Have Voice. And there's a code of conduct that we've come up with. And I actually just had it on my on my desktop, but it's basically a list. And I mean, I would be happy to share my screen or,
Sure.
okay, let me just try to find it because I think I closed the window out.
If you
But
want, you can put the link in the chat, and I can also share it in the Facebook as well.
okay, I'll do that. And I'll try to
Thank you,
find- Yeah. We have what's, but basically it's a code of conduct that it's about creating safe spaces. I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk and type.
Yeah, I
And
know.
there we go. Okay. Here we go. And it just creating safe spaces in the performing arts as to how you can hold people accountable for, here we go. Okay. You can hold people accountable when you're entering an environment that is uncomfortable.
Right.
So that we can continue to create equitable, equitable situations. All right. I'm going to add it in the chat right now. Here we go. Okay.
Cool. Got it.
Got it.
So you gonna pull that up, Chica?
Yep, I'm gonna put it in the. Do you want me to screen share it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, let's do that. All right, let me open it up. Okay.
I see my Aries sister on here, Whitney. Woo woo, Auntie Whitney. Woo-hoo.
Okay, give me 1 second. Continue the convo, and I'll let you know when the screen shares.
Sure. No, this is really good. I'm glad we're touching on this because quite often I do get questions from young ladies on issues like that, and even ladies in school, but then also ladies in college too that deal with these kind of things. And I think it's important when we have these encounters to have our peers. We hold our peers accountable too for seeing these things happen in action, and also come together and support when a situation happens, because a lot of times for young women, they feel really alone and they feel really scared. And like, I know for me, when I was in high school, I had a lot of issues with this, and there were quite a few guys that were friends of mine in the band, and if they saw something happen in front of them, they were like, hey, don't do that, or else I'm going to meet you after school. That's like my sister, don't do that. And I think it's important that we teach that when we educate our kids, because specifically in a band situation, we're playing together, and in a school situation, we're probably going to be together for 3-4 years. So laying down that understanding of respect and cutting down those walls of patriarchal teaching concepts or patriarchal actions and ways that we participate knowingly and unknowingly. It's important for us to kind of have that conversation, lay down the law, and nip it in the bud, so that when we conduct these classes, or when we have band together, or when we play together, we're kind of together with understanding.
Yeah.
I have the screen share ready if y'all are ready to go. All right. All right, can y'all see this?
Yep, you see it.
All right, so this is We Have a Voice website, right here, and this is the code of conduct.
Yes, and there are bullet points. I mean, we could just read through the bold print, but if you can scroll it up a little bit, you need to be, okay, yeah, so the code of conduct, essentially, you can sign the petition online and add yourself, but we have been proactive in reaching out to different performing arts venues and colleges for them to have this up in their classrooms or in their venues, so that people can see this visually, but also they can have it in their arsenal of resources if something happens. And so really to promote, as I was saying before, to promote safer workplaces in the performing arts, of equity. And it's not just for women, but it's also, for other ethnicities, other LGBTQ community, all of this. But starting with the the first bold is how can we commit to creating safer spaces? The first one that I was saying is speak up, seek support, or ask for help. This is key. When witnessing, experiencing, or suspecting any form of harassment, your silence may enable abusive situation. And I think we have all, I know I have been a part of that, of being silent because there was a power dynamic with the teacher or a band leader or just being in a club and not knowing how to react to somebody saying or doing something that's uncomfortable.
Right.
And then the second one is creating mechanisms. So designate persons in your workplace to provide support when needed. This is crucial for those of us who are teachers and these other like you were talking about, Camille. Allowing people to raise their concerns. So creating a safe space, concerns without fear of retaliation, listen and respond in a way that safeguards the position of those speaking up. So, and as you were saying, Camille, I do have these conversations in my classrooms at Berkeley. And one thing I can't say is that this new generation, this younger generation, they're way more aware and conscious of these things and more open, which is good, which is great. The third one is communicate your institutions, anti-harassment policies, and zero tolerance protocol clearly. Dear, I don't know what this is. It's kind of blurred, but to employees, partners, colleagues, at the outset of any work relationship. So most institutions are going to have these things already in place within the infrastructure for you to access, especially colleges. Work collectively to combat bias and stereotypes, take deliberate steps to root them out and minimize their impact. Foster diversity. This is too, and I'm not going to read through all of this. It's available online.
And I posted a link on the comments too.
Yeah. So all of these, you can kind of read through it yourself, but if you're in an environment or a situation that is uncomfortable, this is something that you can go to that will give you some sort of access to tools for you to use.
I love the word. I love that you said tools because that's important for young ladies and just in general for people to know that they can access and are able to use to help themselves in these situations.
Yeah.
And then also too, you said, you kind of said it, but I kind of want to reintroduce it. Educators, we have to do our part in really communicating effectively with our students to know and understand when these situations happen, because like a lot of young ladies, when they're dealing with something like sexism, or even children when they're dealing with something like racism, they might not know exactly what it is, but they understand what it feels like, and they might have that challenge of not being able to communicate it.
Yes. I think that's key, Camille, is that in order to communicate, you first have to identify.
Right.
Something is wrong. Something doesn't feel right to my spirit. Something doesn't, and this is where we as the adults or the elders in the community can help and provide some insight. So that's key. The communication part is key, of just telling somebody. Even when somebody says, especially if it's an older teacher, they're saying, don't tell anybody. This is just between me and you. If anytime an educator or a teacher or someone of power is telling you that, that's a key indicator something's wrong. That's a major red flag. Right.
And then also, of course, as educators, like you said, always making sure that we're creating learning environments that are safe spaces. So even if that's not happening in our classroom, but it's happening somewhere else, it's safe enough to have that conversation with us, and we could have that conversation also with our students.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, this is a safe learning space. We will not make fun of anybody for messing up or making a mistake. Everybody's entitled to learn, judgment free, and we're here to work together to play music and have fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be some unlearning and deconstruction of mindset for those teachers and educators who,
right.
So this is like a multi-tiered thing. And this is what we're working with. I just joined the GIN board, which is the Jazz Education Network.
Cool.
And it's been really great. I mean, we just had these 6-hour board meetings that I was telling you about. But I was like, ah! But aside from all of that, like being in the weeds, I'm realizing it's important for us to show up
Yeah.
on different levels of education. We just can't be out there in the classes. We just can't be on stage.
Right.
We have to be in it all. We have to be on these committees and boards, building new policies, so that, because we're the ones on the stage having to deal with these policies, or in the classrooms, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then, of course, advocate for opportunities for children and even our audience members to see and hear diversity in action on stage.
that's right. That's right. Amen to that. Yep. See people who look like you.
Yeah.
It is a reflection of this society. It doesn't make sense to have some homogenous scope of ethnicity, especially in the music, in this multicultural music, but a music that was started from in Africa.
Yeah. And of course, even in the education system, having representation for people to teach that music from their experience.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's good. I mean, it's Camille. I just commend you for starting these conversations, especially with our young ladies, because it has to be spoken about more and more and more and more. And I am feeling a shift, and in our young ladies, in the strength. Something that I don't know if you see it too, but I haven't. Within the past 10 years, it's like, okay, you're not scared. Okay, you're not scared. Okay, you got this. You good. All right, go.
Yeah. And then the beautiful thing about it too is, like, with technology, they're reaching out and they're connecting, which is wonderful to witness, because like I did the essentially Ellington competition last year. We didn't do it. Well, we did it this year virtually, but I did it last year. And there was a couple of women that came to me from high schools. And then when we did the college competition, there was a couple of women that were in colleges, and they were like, oh my gosh, I see you all the time. And it didn't dawn on me till then. It was just like, wow, now we're in a world where we can instantly see people in action doing what we love through the internet. And I had no clue. And I show up to the gig, try to play the best I can. And, but you realize, wow, people are watching, which is something to note. So we're now this more connected rather than before. Like, even when I met you, it seemed like a completely different world to be even.
No, that is very true, because it was just like this myopic, okay, we're here because Michael Carbone, asked to be here and aligned us, which is a blessing. But now we can actually superimpose ourselves in spaces by being a part of webinars and signing on, all of these opportunities that these different platforms are offering. So that's extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming to that time where we're going to have a good conversation.
We'll have to do part two.
I was just going to step in and say now is a great time to open up for Q&A. Y'all want to step into question and answer this time?
Sure.
All right. Well, first I want to thank both of you for creating this space. Camille, I want to thank you for creating this space and making not only yourself, Camille, but also Tia accessible to the women and also the people that are following on Facebook. It's not every day that we get a chance to have these conversations. So I want to say thank you on my behalf and also everyone here. So as we step into Q&A, I just want to let everyone know how to ask a question. We ask, if you're in Zoom, just please utilize the raise hand function. And you can do that by going down to your Zoom screen at the bottom of Zoom bar at the bottom of your screen and click on participants, and then a tab should open up on your right-hand side, and you should be able to click on raise hand. It should queue up in order, so please make sure that we're going to do our best to get to each question as we can. And if you're in Facebook, just go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. If you are in Zoom and you do want to ask a question, but you don't want to be brought up on the screen and in the live, you can just type your question in the chat as well. So whatever you're comfortable with. So let's go ahead and open it up. Do we have any questions in the chat?
You know, I have some questions from the Google form that I had out too. So maybe while you're looking.
Yeah, let's start out with that. That's a great idea, Camille. Let's start out with your questions that your audience has asked ahead of time, and then we'll jump into questions from our live.
Okay. Ooh, okay. This question is from Taylor Mickens, and she's 21, and she's from Amherst, Massachusetts. And she asks, what do you suggest a young Black vocalist who is about to graduate college next spring should do for networking, meeting people, getting gigs, and becoming established with COVID-19 making it unsafe to do our practice in the world?
Mm-hmm. That's challenging. I'm assuming this question is for me, or do you?
Yeah,
yeah, so COVID, is throwing a wrench in many things, but it's also providing many opportunities for us to dig deeper. And I would suggest, well, first of all, the first thing that came to mind is be proactive with your preparation to create smooth transitions. It's a quote that I drill into my students. But make sure that you're being proactive with your preparation. If you want to go out there and start gigging and networking with individuals to create, this transition, make sure that you have either, at this point, like a product. If you have an EP out there, you can start using Instagram to create followings and to have videos, because one thing that has changed now that was not happening when I first moved to New York in 2001 is that we have, as I was saying, we have all of these platforms, and instead of people going out and hand giving out, CDs or MP3s, many people are getting names like companies or record companies, band members, people who are looking for members for a band. They'll go straight to your IG page. They won't even go to your website anymore. They may to get some information, but they'll go straight to your IG page and to see who you are, what type of post you've put up, and what your craft is, and how you've been displaying that on Instagram. So that's another thing, is that making sure that your Instagram is reflective of the totality of who you want to be portrayed as. And I was kind of hesitant in saying who you are. Sometimes we are not in alignment with who we are trying to get to, but we don't want to display that. Meaning, you don't want to get on Instagram and just have some tasteless photos up there when you're trying to market yourself as a professional in the workplace, whatever that is, whether it be a musician or what have you. So just make sure that your Instagram, and it could be, the totality of your life, whatever you want to share, but just make sure that it's speaking to the positive intersection of what you have to contribute, so that people can get an idea as to who you are, not just what you do.
Yeah.
Quotes that you have up, videos that you have up, conversations that you may have with individuals. And then I think with COVID, and I'm trying to make this short, but I'm not, so I apologize. But and with COVID, it's forcing us all to be really, really creative and to tap into certain resources that we didn't that we had before, but we might not have utilized. And I mean, for each individual, it kind of changes. But I just had a talk to Tia with Avery Sunshine yesterday. It was a great vocalist, if you're not familiar with her. She's one of my Spellman sisters, but she was like, yeah, girl, I just started a makeup line. It was something that I always wanted to do, but because I have an enormous amount of time on my hands, this is what I'm doing now, in addition to still building her brand and then also, you know, working on her music. So hopefully that was helpful, Taylor, in some way.
I would also throw in there too, since you're a vocalist, Taylor, I've seen a lot of vocalists take this opportunity to literally collaborate with artists, because now virtually you can do that. If there's a musician that you love and admire, or if there's some musicians that you work with, now's a perfect time to put a little project together. It doesn't have to necessarily be a full blown out project, but just a simple song or something that you're working on, just to show that you're actively still using your craft and that you're open to working with other different people. And of course, when you put it up and post it, make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. You always want to make sure that you aim to put the best quality music up there, because right now, especially, there's so much information that's being put out consistently all the time, that when somebody looks for you, you want it to speak for itself, that they identify you for that. And it's not, oh, you know, it was okay. It's a strong statement that stands by who you are and your identity.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
We got any questions, Uni?
Yes, we do. All right, now that we're going to move on to our virtual questions in our live. I ask that everyone please make your questions brief so it gives time for everyone to ask a question. And it looks like our first question comes from Whitney Marshall. Whitney, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello, ladies. Hello, my sister Aries.
Hi, Auntie Whit.
Pleasure working with both of you, and I'm very proud of your professionalism and success. One of the questions that I have for both of you, often I get horn players, no offense, you guys, who do not know the term in playing in the pocket. Mm-hmm. If you go and Google the definition of in the pocket, Mark Levine says it's a groove. One person says it's a backbeat, a type of backbeat. So I would like to know, what is your description of playing in the pocket, and how, if I am a band leader, instruct a horn player. I'm saying horn players because usually, I don't know, I try to say short fills in the, you know, and I still say in the pocket. So maybe you can just give me a determination of that. I don't know. I wish you had both of your saxes you could show how to do it.
Great. Thank you for your question. Go ahead, Tia.
Yeah, that's a first for me to answer in the pocket. But so when I think about in the pocket, I think about it's not only placement of time, because to me there's a front side of the beat. The macro is the front side of the beat, the middle of the beat, and then behind the beat, which I usually tend to play behind the beat. But to be conscious of that and understand that you could still be in pocket because you have this element of elasticity around the beat.
Right.
Being able to explore and be conscious of where you are and where you're housed within the beat. But really, without all of that, and in layman's terms, I would just say make it danceable. Make sure you can dance. And there's a certain element that, what is it? James Brown movie, the James Brown movie. Yeah. I'm thinking about how James Brown, and he was like, "Who's drummer?" And he looked back, "Are you a drummer? You a drummer?" And everybody, I'm the drummer. I'm the drummer. But there's a certain element, not even a certain element. All of us are responsible for time.
Yep.
And housing time and understanding our placement within the construct of the time. So middle beat. In the middle, in front, behind, whatever that is, to be conscious of that and to know how it feels. And one of the best lessons that I got with this is Nikki Glaspie. I remember we were doing, great drummer, we played with Beyonce together, and we were just playing a session, and she was playing a groove up against the track, a Beyonce track, and then she came behind the groove, but she was still in the pocket, and then she came in front of the groove, but it was everything that she was housing around it that made it still dance.
Right.
So that's my definition, my long definition.
What about you, Camille?
That's right on the money, what it is. And I think also too, the most important thing you got to remember is the feel. Don't be so caught up in what you're doing in your world that you're forgetting to listen. Because if you're in a situation where the rhythm section is laying down the groove and laying down the pocket, you got to be able to listen and find where you can fit within that. If you're in your own world, just kind of like, I've been working this stuff out, I'm just gonna make it happen, then you're not playing with the band. You're not really taking advantage of being in the moment and feeling the music and feeling the groove. And also check out recordings. There's so many recordings available to us to listen to understand the different feels and the different grooves out there. Particularly for jazz, man, when you talk about jazz, you can't talk about the drum. You can't talk about where this music comes from, Africa, the rhythms involved, the grooves. You have to do your research and study so you can be able to hear and recognize what those grooves are and what feels good, what sounds good versus what's not in the pocket. So you can be able to differentiate, oh, that's in the pocket, or no, that's not in the pocket. This is what's missing. And the only way you're going to do that is by listening. Check out some James Brown. Check out some Bernard Purdy. Check out some Elvin Jones. Check out all kinds of different drummers with different styles of music so you can get familiar with what is the pocket and what's not the pocket.
Thank you for your question, Whitney, and it's always good to see you. Our next question comes from Ella. Ella, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Hi.
Hi.
So how old were you, or when did you realize that the path of music, that you were on the right path, or that everything was working out? You know, or
That's a good question.
You're talking Camille, you want to answer? Is that for me? Are these for me or for? I don't want to.
yeah.
For both of you.
Camille,
You can go first if you like.
How did I figure it was coming together and working?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm always trying to work it out. Since I sing and I play, I'm always trying to fine tune. I never feel like there's a moment where I'm like, aha, I got it. I'm straight for life. No, I'll watch a video of Betty or I'll watch a video of Dexter and I'm like, dang, I need to work that out. I think the key to it is knowing, which Tia touched on too, knowing exactly what it is that you want to go for or align yourself to, and to keep chasing after it. Because as you keep chasing after it, you're going to keep perfecting it. And it's going to reveal more about yourself, but then also help you to figure out what necessary steps or things you need to figure out in between to get to that goal. And you'll find that you never really quite fully get to it. You're always kind of going towards it and getting a little closer step by step, but then at the same time learning this wealth of wonderful information that helps define you as an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And I was hesitant because I'm still trying to figure it out. And I think, you know, there's a phrase, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And to truly embrace the journey of discovery of self and how you rest within. Music is such a beautiful thing because we're able to use it in so many different ways, but we're able to sit with it, and many times it can serve as a reflection of who we are, our internal being, our spirit. And so to really use it as a vehicle and I keep saying empower, but a vehicle to empower yourself, a vehicle to exude any sort of emotions that you have. Just the more that you do that, to me, that's where your authentic voice comes from. And that's the journey, because we're constantly, and that was beautiful, Camille, beautifully said, we're constantly chasing, constantly, or as I would say, etching deeper into your diamondness. We're constantly digging deeper. And that's the whole aspect or element of really the 3 tiers of becoming a diamond. You start from a piece of coal, and then you endure an extreme amount of pressure and temperature. And then the term diamond cut, you reach to the top of the Earth's surface, and you get to a certain level that you're able to give back and reflect the light that has been poured into you. But many times you get on top there, and I think you've heard this before, and I think I talked about this, but you go on top and then you go back under and you have to reassess. It's not always going to feel good to be a musician. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be exhilarating. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be irritating. It's going to be all of these different emotions that we embrace so that we can allow that to serve as our authentic voice.
Yep. And sometimes you might have to chisel away some bad habits and develop some good new ones, which might be painful at first, but you'll realize that it pays off when you're able to get into your happy space of performing, and you get to see, wow, I grew. There's some growth here, and I'm confident with what I'm presenting.
That's right.
Great question, Ella. Thank you. All right, next question comes from Rochelle. I'm going to ask to unmute you as well.
Good afternoon, ladies.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi.
I wanted to ask, this is for Tia and Camille. Camille, this is awesome what you're doing, and I just wanted to say that you ladies have some of the beautifulest tone I ever heard. I play tenor myself.
Oh,
And yes, and Brad Leely's a good friend of mine. But anyway, to make a long story short, yes. Can you give me a little insight of your practice routine?
sure.
Both of you, Camille and Tia, please.
Yeah. So when I'm practicing every day, which that's a whole other conversation at this point in the juncture, but I'm going to turn my camera around because I'm a big list person. I don't know if you see that.
I see it.
Yes, I do.
And those are like all of the big projects that I'm doing in my life, or things that I need to get to on a daily, or Michael. But when I was back in college, and even after that, when I first moved to New York, I had a practice journal to where I started from my big picture as to where I wanted to be, and then like went down to my daily. And what it looked like was, and still what it looks like on a macro level is long tones, scales and patterns, transcriptions, learning tunes, and writing and composition. And the ironic thing about that is Victor Goins, I remember meeting him at this club called the El Chapultepec in Denver, Colorado, where I'm from. And Lincoln Center was in town, and I was just talking to him. I must have been about 21 or 22, just talking about practice methods. And he was like, make sure that your practicing is balanced. It's like balance similar to the 5 basic food groups. You don't want to do too much of one thing and then not enough of the other, because you want to create that balance. Another thing that I later discovered that I didn't really realize until years later is that to the application of the idea. So we have to practice, like if we're dealing with a certain tonality or a concept, like I'm working on major thirds or augmented triads or something, practicing that just in isolation is not going to get you to the music. You actually have to formulate, you have the idea, boom, And the way that I like to think about it is the mordant, which is that sticky stuff in between bricks and then building a house. The house is actually the music. We need to practice getting to the mordant. How this adhesive, how are we going to get this idea into real time and application to get to the music? And that's something I didn't learn until I was in my probably 30s, early 30s, I was dealing with many ideas, but I didn't know how to practice the process of application. And that goes with transcriptions too. Like if you have a phrase that you like, okay, how can you create different permutations of this phrase or variations of a phrase so that you can make it your own? And creating that practice so that you internalize the idea and it becomes an innate part of you, of your language.
Okay, thank you.
I totally agree with you, Tia. You definitely want to have a structured practice situation, because the last thing you want to do is spend time but only focus on one thing, and then you have so many other areas to focus on. I mean, just dealing with, if we're talking about the saxophone, you got sound, you got articulation, you got technique, then you got, those are your building blocks that you might want to spend 20, 30 minutes each day working on. Then also you have applying those things in real time with music. We have our etudes we work out of just to keep ourselves in shape so we could apply those things. Then we also maybe have something like the Omni book. If you're a jazz player, you like to read that to keep yourself in shape for your reading, but then also for getting around your instrument and being familiar with the language. And then, of course, you want to give yourself an opportunity to work on learning tunes. If you play jazz, you got to have your repertoire together, because you could practice your scales, practice your arpeggios, practice your long tones, but if you don't know how to play through songs and apply those things, you're stuck. So you're learning how are songs put together harmonically, the melodies for different songs, practicing playing those melodies in different keys, practicing playing those melodies at different tempos, so you could be familiar with mastering it without any limitations. And then, of course, having time to practice in real time, playing over those harmonic changes or combinations, because part of being a musician, we'll be in situations where we know the song and we'll be in situations where we don't know the song. And in those situations where we don't know the song, we have to learn how to learn a song up front, because you'll realize music has structure. Some music has structure, some music doesn't, or it has structure different. Actually, I don't want to say no structure. Some music have predictable structures, and some music have structures that might not be symmetrical or predictable. So you got to be comfortable with being able to maneuver and navigate all kinds of music, and understanding harmonically when you hear certain sounds, those sounds put together create progressions, and how those progressions create a formula for what the tune is. But then also be in those situations where if there is no formula, how can you navigate understanding what you hear and accessing it on your instrument? And of course, like Tia said, transcriptions. If you play jazz and you don't play transcriptions, that's like trying to talk without ever listening to anybody have a conversation. Because this music is about conversation. It's a language. And if you don't spend the time being familiar with hearing the language, then how can you speak it? We have to transcribe so we can understand what it means when somebody plays something. There's more than just the rhythms and the notes. There's the phrasing. There's the meaning behind it. There's the intention. Those musical things that we might overlook if we just had it handed to us on a sheet of paper. That's what makes the music come together. Sorry, that's my dog. Quiet, Duke. All of these different things, you definitely want to make sure you chart it down. I have a little practice book where whenever I practice, if I'm going to be practicing for a couple of hours, I write it down. Long tones, 30 minutes. Scales or technical stuff, 30 minutes. Which ones did I work on? Or, okay, I'm going to be working on the upper part of my horn. What exercises am I working on for my mechanics so I can maneuver playing comfortably? Then, okay, right on the next line. All right, I'm working on my thirds, I'm working on my sixths. Okay, the next line, transcription. Sunny Stitt, Body and Soul. I worked on the first chorus. And I'm transcribing it, playing along with the recording in real time, and I'm sitting down, analyzing what's being done. Because that's the important thing. We can't just get it and like, oh, I got it by ear, I'm cool, and keep it going. No, what's happening? How can you understand what's happening? Then the next line, what tunes for the week are you learning? What keys are you playing them? The tempos. Then the next line, listening. Who are you listening to? Because after you put all that time in practicing everything, you gotta be familiar with the different sounds that are out there. Because if you're trying to create your own or find your identity on your instrument, who are you inspired by? What's your inspiration? And then of course, like Tia said, get out and play. Because all this stuff is great if you're by yourself, but we make music with people. And being able to manage ourselves in situations where we're playing and executing that, accessing it on our horn, it's critical that we play as much as we can and apply it, because that's where we really learn and it sticks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Michelle. That was a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
So it looks like we have some questions in the Facebook chat. Camille, do you think we have time to get to those? Or should I have them, we can have them email them to you, or however best to do that.
How are you feeling, Tia? Is it okay if we take maybe one or two from Facebook?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, let's do that. Cool. All right, let me just grab those. So the first question on Facebook asks from Linisha McKinney. She asks, what does your management team look like if you're comfortable sharing? Would either of you be willing to give private lessons on the business aspects of artistry?
Oh, that's good.
Ooh, that's a masterclass in itself.
Right, that's a whole nother class.
It is. That is, but oh gosh, I just lost the first question. What?
No, that's okay. That's okay. What does your management team look like?
Oh, that's why I lost it.
Yes, if you're comfortable sharing.
It looks like me. So I've gone through about 3 different managers. And it's a great thing when the relationship is great. And when, to me, having a manager and a booking agent, because to me, your team should be comprised, now it's kind of expanded, but it should be comprised of your manager. A manager is someone just to kind of help define, even though they're kind of, the lines are blurred a little bit, but the manager usually is out there managing your career, but you have to have something to manage. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense for you to be out here just trying to get out there and then you have nothing for your manager to manage. The second thing, or the second individual on your team is your booking agent. And you can have a European booking agent, a domestic, a U.S. booking agent, or someone who does it all, who covers different territories. I do have a couple of those. And that's been really helpful because they're in charge of you getting, not in charge, but they are helpful with getting you work, your band work. And then now I'm realizing, sometimes having an assistant can serve as your manager or a booking agent. I think, Camille, you were talking about that. Mm-hmm. And then also having someone, actually have someone to help to refine my social media posts. So that you have a certain standard. Sometimes I just post by myself, but like for my Talk to Tia flyers, there's certain things that I'm just not able to do, or I just don't want to do. And so he's very helpful in doing that. So it is important that you have a team, but most importantly, I would say everything, you are the facilitator. If you are an artist and somebody is telling you what to do, that's an boo-boo. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm now managing myself, and I'm looking at other managers, but because you don't want to be in a situation that someone is telling you what to do, and then you get kind of messed over. You get money stolen from somebody, just disappears and takes money, or the logistics are not all the way out. So just make sure that you are clear. And this is going back to the initial statement, make sure you have a crystallized vision for yourself. It's not to say that you're going to stay, it's going to be just that, but it's going to help for you to really stay connected and aligned with your big picture. So that if somebody else comes in talking about, oh, I'm going to do this, it's either going to fit within your alignment, like your big picture, or it's not. Or you can figure out a way, you can negotiate a way to make it all connect. I'll stop there because I know.
Oh, man. I mean, for myself, I've always been managing myself, and it actually was kind of both a choice, and at one point I was looking, but it wasn't until I was much later in my career. When I first started, I was doing everything, and even today I'm still doing a lot of it, everything. The best thing you want to do is have mentors to talk to, because they've been there and done that, and they could kind of guide you and save you from making those mistakes that can cost either thousands of dollars or waste a lot of time. And they'll also kind of give you hints as to the insides within the business, because sometimes as musicians we get so caught up in the music that there's a whole nother side that we have to actually take time to study and learn the business of it. When you create, I don't want to say a product, but when you create art, how do you make sure that you ensure that it's yours and that it's not taken? How do you make sure that you're able to make royalties off of it while you sleep? How are you able to make sure that you own the copyright, own the publishing? So that way, if somebody wants to use it for a movie or whatever, well, you have something set up so that your property is still yours and it's able to create a source of income for yourself while you sleep. When I started getting really, really busy, I did hire an assistant, and it was very, very helpful, because a lot of times when you're getting emails for business, you got to be prompt in getting back to people, especially if there's gigs involved. And you don't want to have somebody that really believes in your artistry contact you and you don't hit them up ever. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of that stuff. But if you're getting to a place in your career where you can get somebody that you trust that can help you in facilitating, managing all those things. But I would say, if you can, there's some great books out there that you can check out that are helpful for musicians in understanding the different parts of the business that we should know. You definitely want to have somebody that that knows contracts, because you don't want to sign anything away without knowing the meaning behind the language. My mentor was Maxine Gordon, and she still is, and she was very instrumental in the beginning part of my career when I first signed the first deal. And she was like, baby, let me look at that first. Don't sign nothing until I look at it. And we went through it together, and she taught me how to read the language within those contracts so that I knew what I was signing off to and that I was okay with it. But I'm gonna stop right there.
That's a good question. Thank you both. We have, and our last question for today comes from Anna. And she says, this is a great honor to be listening to such powerful female saxophonists with the power you possess as a role model and public figure to many upcoming female musicians. How do you handle stage fright? Most female musicians have a problem in being addressed as female musician. And do you see this word as demeaning?
Question. Yeah. As far as...
Oops, I just muted you by mistake, Tia.
No, I'm just like... sorry. I was saying that's a good question, and then okay. So how do you handle stage fright? You know, one of the things that I do, and the thing is this is all practice. Like we are all having to refine certain things. So dealing with stage fright, you just can't get on stage and then start doing something without actually practicing it off stage. And so there are things that I do, such as prayer. I always pray before I get on stage, usually by myself and with my band. And then there are certain affirmations that I go toward, like scripture that I tap into. Greater is he within me than he within the world. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. So just start speaking positivity. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And all of these things that I remember being at Cecil's Jazz Club in West Orange, New Jersey. And I would be always the only woman in there sitting in with Bruce Williams, Don Braden, you know, all the Mark Gross. And they were all family to me. But prior to that, prior to me knowing them, it was like, oh God, oh, you know. And so I'm saying these things, these affirmations to get me through, to where the stage fright doesn't necessarily all the way go away, but you get on stage and you get to your instrument and then you can redirect your energy into your attention of the music. To me, the stage fright happens once you step on stage. But once you actually start getting to the bulk of the music and you put your horn in your mouth or you get to your instrument, you're able to funnel it more through that. So that's my offering for that. And then to the second point, what was it again?
The second point was most female musicians have a problem being addressed as quote unquote female musicians. You see these words as demeaning.
That's another masterclass, but in essence, yes, I do. But it's hard because it has presented opportunity. Like playing with Beyonce's band, she would introduce us as her all-female band. You know? So just to try to keep it short, I would say that as long as the musician, ourselves as women, don't play off of that whole idea. To me, especially when I was like sitting in and I was breaking into the scene, and I never really I was trying to downplay my femaleness, which is not healthy either. That's something else. But that is not healthy. But it was because I was listening to mentors who were men, and they were basically trying to get me visually, which doesn't make any sense, but visually so that people can just focus on my music. And in the very beginning, that was always my goal, is that I want to be a great musician. I want to be a great, I want to be a great female musician or introduced as I want to be a great musician. So just simplistically, just focus on your musicianship, I would say. And as far as the terminology of being demeaning, it can be, but it really comes down to the individual in your artistry and how you utilize, not even being an opportunist, but how you're able to, for others to utilize that for whatever they want. And you know that you're accessing the ultimate musicianship that you can possibly access. Camilla Billa?
Stage fright? Oh man. I mean, everybody gets the jitters.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do, honestly, is know your instrument, because you have to be comfortable with your instrument, but then also you have to be comfortable with yourself so that when you're in those moments, you can shut out all those things and have the confidence to be able to just play. Like, I know for me, I never forget the first gig I did with the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra. I was nervous as heck because it was just like, oh crap, all right, I gotta play. And then I just remembered why I like playing. And then also I knew in my head, I was like, okay, I practiced. I did everything I needed to do. So it's not like I don't know anything. I do know what I know. So just trust on what you know, say a prayer, and just jump in and have fun and play. And I think that's the thing we have to remember. We do this because we love it and it's healing to us, but then also it's beautiful in that it's healing to other people. So when you take away those distractions that kind of make us feel tense, and you check yourself with what you do know and understand, and remind yourself that you do it because you love it, that's one way of getting over it. And it's helped me many times. As far as, I forgot the second question. Dang it.
Oh, the second question was being addressed as a female musician.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
You know, it comes down to language. I think as a society, we have to get to a point where we hold ourselves accountable to how we communicate with each other, especially when it comes to seeing women on stage. The reason why people say, well, that's a female band is because they're not used to seeing it. And it's kind of like the purple unicorn. I think we as a community, overall, the global community, we have to, one, allow opportunities where we can see women in positions where they're performing or leading bands or working with other, situations, so that it could become something that is a norm and not something that we have to single out every time when we see it. And that's nothing against, the wonderful accomplishments that women have done. There's been a lot of great women artists that have gone through a lot of sacrifices, and they've paid the dues for us to be able to step up and play. But I think it's collectively as a community, we need to understand and remind ourselves that a woman is great at her instrument because she sounds great, not because she happens to be a woman too. We should respect people for what's coming out of their horn and not notice the gender first and then the horn.
Wow, I agree. Thank you, Tia and Camille.
Yeah.
This has been an incredible conversation, and I'd love to see you guys do it again. And I'm sure everyone else here would. Is there anything that you both want to close out with before we end the session today?
There was something that Camille said that preempted a quote, and I'm going to say two of them. But the first one is that, especially dealing with fear, for both of them, is Louis Armstrong had said, don't allow yourself to be a barrier between you and the music. Mm-hmm. We have to remove ourselves so that we can be a conduit in a selfless vessel. And then the second thing is a quote that I came up with that was really the impetus for Decisive Steps. And really allowing, honoring both that there is fear, and then also tapping in largely to faith, and understanding that we have to continue to move forward in faith and not fear. How does that show up in our lives? And although the faith, we always want the faith to superimpose the fear, because one thing that I know, that if I'm reaching for something that I'm not sure of, but I'm faithfully watching and I'm faithfully stepping in that direction, it opens up so much opportunity of abundance. I have seen that happen over and over in my life and then other people's lives. Now, if the fear, I've seen that if the fear superimposes, and I've done this too, but fear superimposes the faith, you stay right here. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, those would be the two things: faith and not fear. Moving forward in faith and not fear.
I think that's an excellent note to close on.
Hey!
That's right. Tia, thank you. I can't thank you enough for joining me today. And I know you've been such an inspiration and have been just a blessing to so many people watching today. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here and doing this Haven Hang.
Thank you for having me, Camille. And I once again, I think you are doing extraordinary things, and having this platform to come together, just come together as some strong, powerful women, and having these very important conversations. Just continue to do the work that God has you on this planet to do, and walking in your purpose and your light. I love you dearly. You know, we'll have a conversation after this, but you. And Uni, thank you. It's so great to see you too.
Oh, I'm so full right now, and I'm so thankful for both of you. I mean, my first experiences with coming to this city and being in the music are with Camille, and then from Camille to you. Yeah, so it's just it's a full circle moment right now, and I'm so grateful. So thank you.
And if y'all haven't seen Black is King, check it out.
Yeah,
Black is King, and I'm not saying that because it's Beyonce by any means, because I wasn't even gonna watch it. But yeah, go and see that. Talk about powerful representation of women in the Black community, yes, and not us being seen as animals in The Lion King, but Disney actually representing us as people. That's a whole other conversation, but yeah.
And also support Tia. She has a session she hosts every Tuesday called Talk to Tia live on Instagram. So check it out. She's had some great shows on there with some artists like Mimi Jones and Diane Reeves and so many other people. Check it out and support it. And of course, like our Instagram pages, like our Facebook pages. We're both online, tiafuller.com. I'm CamilleThurmanMusic.com. If you want to find out more about the Haven Hang and join us on the next one, leave your email, subscribe to the mailing list at www.CamilleThurman.com/The Haven Hang. There's a schedule with all the other sessions that are going to be happening. This is a bi-monthly series. So the next one will be August 26th. Subscribe to the mailing list and you'll find out who the special guest will be.
Can I just put a plug out for tomorrow on facebooklive.com/chickenbonebeachac is a live performance that I did in my backyard. It was a dream come true, and it was an extraordinary event. But a 90-minute concert with my quartet, Diamond Cut, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. on facebook.com. If you go to my IG page and Facebook page, it's there. I have a video in the poster, but /ChickenBoneBeachAC, which is
Atlantic City.
That's right.
All right.
Well, thank you again, Tia, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Haven Hang today. And I look forward to seeing you August 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be safe, wear your mask. Yeah. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. We're off Facebook Live.
Okay. Yay, Camille Miller. Yay, Uni. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Yes.
God.
This is really amazing. This is great. Anytime you want me on here, just let me know.
Really? Because there were like 2 other masterclass sessions people mentioned on here.
Oh, that's right.
The business one, and I forgot what the other one was.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I definitely would love to have you back.
Yeah, just let me know.
Okay.
Fine. Yay! Well, I'm gonna go and grab some dinner. My boyfriend's being very patient.
Tell him I said hello and thank you.
Yes.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's worth it. Love y'all.